Good afternoon, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Uh, Welcome back and nice to have you here. Today is September 11, 2021. So uh, we are, you know, commemorating the 20 years of the attack in New York and other cities in the United States. It's a very horrible day to remember, where when almost 3,000 Americans uh, died on this day, uh, especially the Twin Tower in New York and Pentagon and other places. So very horrible day. Uh, also impacted the whole world through the war on terror operation. So many, Muslims especially impacted under this so-called the war on terror operation. Many uh, the the attack is very high magnitude. It created horrible tragedy on the Americans. As I said, around 3,000 Americans lost their lives. Uh, so concerned citizens media wish them, uh, comfort, strength for those families, friends, co-workers, of those lost Americans, and wish, rest in peace for those perished on that day. So also those, especially the Muslims who impacted due to the war on terror, just because uh, not because they're involved in these attacks, but just by the generalization of the operation, the war on terror. Many was taken into Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Many arrested in different countries just for being Muslim. Many lost their business, frozen their account. Governments in Africa and other parts of the world use the war on terrorism to attack political opponents. So the impact of uh, September 11, 2001, it was very huge, very impacted the whole global community very badly. Uh, Most of the attackers came from the Saudi Arabia. When you compared, Saudi Arabia survived the challenge because of the relationship with the United States, and uh, almost 11 of the 20 hijackers are from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, when you compare with Afghanistan and Iraq or other parts, uh, they, they didn't suffer that much because of the relationship with the United States, economic relationship and other diplomatic relationship. But Iraq suffered. Afghanistan, we went there stayed there for 20 years, spent trillions, spent American lives and other lives from UK, Italy, NATO members and others. And we exited badly, in a bad shape. we actually ran away from Afghanistan. The Taliban came back after 20 years of losing our blood and our resources in that country, and even the exit was not safe. We didn't even secure to exit safely. So something managed very badly. We don't know, but that's the visible something we are watching on news and others. Uh, so it's a very tough one, and extremely has a very bad impact globally. Uh, so I just say, concerned citizens media expresses deep sorrow for all the lives lost and all the lives impacted by September 11, and you know, uh, wish the family again, the friends, co-workers, and strength for comfort for all impacted by this event. So we are commemorating 20 years of the attack. Uh, the other one is update on the war in Ethiopia, on the civil war in Ethiopia. Still heavy fighting going on. Actually, I have one video from the uh, my guy. I trusted this guy. He analyzed it very well, so I have a video at the end. But in general, from different media, the conflict is not ending sight. There is no ending sight. I know TDF, Tigray Defense Force, shifted their operation from Afar region to Amara region. So uh, the, the the casualties of this war, uh, you know, between the same citizens of that country is very huge. Too many deaths, uh, injuries, property damage. So unbelievable. And uh, both sides, especially from Ethiopian side, there is no a closing argument for this war except, you know, galvanizing people for more conflict and to win the war through military means. So heavy casualties, especially TDF is claiming thousands and thousands Ethiopian soldiers, Amara soldiers killed, captured, weapons seized. So even though there is no independent media to verify, Ethiopia also claimed in the same way victory against TDF. So there is no BBC, there is no Deutsche Welle, there is no Voice of America that we can, see another view of this reporting. But both sides uh, claim, especially TDF in the last 24 hours, claiming huge military victory against Amara and Ethiopian federal forces, and all against all these militia came from different parts of Ethiopia. So the Oromo Liberation Army is also extending its operations and even graduating new recruits after giving them training. So it's expanding its operation in Oromia. It's coming deeper into the central part of Ethiopia. So that's also, uh, you know, formidable, becoming a formidable force in these days. We are watching it as the getting closer to major cities and towns. They have a lot of rural areas, towns, and even some cities. But the government is shutting down internet and phone service, so it's very tough to get the updates. Still, some news are leaking. The operation is continue against TDF, against the Prosperity party, I mean, in Oromia region. Ethiopia also welcoming a new year. Uh, According to Ethiopian calendar, 2013 is closing and 2014 is starting now. But is there any new message for 2014? Nothing from the Prime Minister or other official, nothing, except calling for more war and except galvanizing, encouraging people to die. So there is no open arm for dialogue, reconciliation in the coming year. So Ethiopian people are facing, economic challenge, global isolation, inflation, conflict, unprecedented hate between different ethnicities, command posts, war. So it's nothing new. It's nothing encouraging. No bright future for that country under Prosperity Party leadership or under Abiy Ahmed leadership. So Ethiopians are suffering, economically suffering through global isolation, different sanctions, and then the war, ongoing war. So it's nothing hopeful for 2014, for the new year. No message. No message. There is no message how to fix these all problems, how to come to the global community instead of isolation. Never happened in Ethiopian history that the Ethiopian government shut down embassies and bringing back all these embassy employees back to home. Nothing. I never heard of this. So Ethiopia is in a very bad shape under Abiy Ahmed, and he got no solution for Ethiopia and the Ethiopians. So the fight will continue. The hatred against each other will continue. The Amara expansionist agenda in Benishangul, in Oromia region, and other area will continue. There is no sign of peace. There is no sign of stability. There is no sign of economic development. There is no hope for Ethiopians. There is no hope. So that's the update, and I have some other news to read the video at the end to share with you. Thank you again. Welcome back. Let's read some other news. Ministry suspended more than 80,000 revokes 520 licenses and sues 2,200 businesses, issue warning against price hacking in Addis Ababa. The Ministry of Trade and Industry said it has taken action against more than 80,641 businesses that made improper price hikes and participated in illegal activities. The Ethiopian press agency quoted communication advisor to the Minister of Trade and Industry of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Wondatir Mekonnen, as saying, action is being taken against businesses involved in illegal activities to reverse the success of the law enforcement campaign. According to Wondatir, action is being taken against those who support the terrorist group by concealing dollars and products and engaging in improper and unreasonable price increases. He said 80,641 businesses has been suspended, 520 business licenses were revoked, and 2,230 businesses were sued. The government will not tolerate those who are involved in money laundering without any economic reason or supply problem, especially during the ongoing law enforcement campaign, Wondatir said. He said a task force led by the Ministry of Trade and Industry, comprising the Federal Police Commission, Information and Security, Revenue and Custom Authority, and all stakeholders was established, which has been taking legal action against those who inflict artificial price hiking. So at this standard, to contact the Ministry of Trade and Industry for further explanation were unsuccessful. So this is the sign of the country in a very bad shape. How do you suspend 80,000 plus licenses? This is a crisis. This is a crisis. This is another sign of crisis. And the government inability to handle the economic collapse of that country. This is very bad shit, very bad indication. How all these 80,000 merchants, business owners suspended and the country will continue. So in addition to the war, the country is facing other challenges, and one of the challenges is price hike, inflation, and it seems the government is not handling the business. When you see punishing all these 80,000 business owners and suing and threatening them, this is very bad for that country. Really, it's another indication of the government failure in handling the country's business. That's why I say there is no hope in that country. Benishangul Gumuz regional states vows to take final measures against the TPLF agents. The Benishangul Gumuz regional state of Ethiopia has announced in the press briefing that it has finalized its preparation to take the final and decisive measurements against what it called TPLF agents operating in Metekel and Kamashi zone. In the statement, the regional government accused TPLF agents of being anti-peace and a terrorist group that are based in Benishangul Gumuz and the Kamashi zones, which, according to the briefing, has made banditry a part of its livelihood, and it does not want peace in the region under any circumstances. The statement detailed that the Benishangul Gumuz region government has been working with federal government in past, especially in the two zones, to find a solution to the security crisis created by the anti-peace forces of the TPLF branch. In addition to the loss of lives, casualties, and property damage, many civilians have been displaced from their homes that they live in for many years due to the attack and the security havoc inflicted by these destructive forces, the statement said. The briefing addressed that the regional government has been working hard for months to solve the problem peacefully and through dialogue, and allocated a huge budget, time, and manpower. Some members of the armed group operating in Metekel and the Kamashi zone accepted the proposed peaceful negotiation and underwent rehabilitation training, the presser said. In the presser, the regional government stated that it was working patiently for the past few months to settle the matter through negotiation, which was, however, turned down by TPLF agents and even by those who took the rehabilitation training. According to the statement, the looting and harming of the civilians has gotten worse. The regional government has previously ordered security forces to take irreversible action against criminal groups operating in various parts of the state, the statement said. In detail, to destabilize lasting peace in the region, the TPLF's misery continue to use banditry as part of its life. Instead of peace, TPLF has continued killing innocent people, looting property, and destabilizing society. So the regional government signed a memorandum of understanding with an armed group in bid to bring a lasting solution to the security crisis in the region in May 2021. It went on to appoint 25 former members of the unidentified armed group to 2 regional, 3 zonal, and 16 Woreda level leadership positions in July. So that's Benishangul Gumuz region is one of the worst region at this time due to the conflict. Is also another indication of a weaker, failed leadership of Mr. Abiy Ahmed in Ethiopia. He don't know how to settle the conflict. He don't know how to manage all these conflicts. The country is falling under the leadership. Misery. Okay. African Union suspended Guinea after military coup. The move comes after a military junta arrested Guinea President Alpha Conde and dissolved the country's constitution. The African Union, AU, said on Friday that it was suspending Guinea's membership in the bloc after a military junta overthrew the government. The bloc said on Twitter that the country was suspended from all African Union activities and decision-making bodies. The African Union Department for Political Affairs, Peace and Security urged AU Commission Chairperson Moussa Faki to engage with shareholders in the region. Guinea was one of the African Union's founding members. The AU aims to achieve greater political integration on the continent and promote human rights. The ruling junta, led by Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, took control of the West African country on Sunday and arrested President Alpha Conde. Junta leaders have accused Conde of being corrupt. Guinea's military leaders have suspended the constitution and closed the country's borders. In addition, they have frozen government bank accounts to seize state assets. Guinea's junta, pressured by ECOWAS and UN. Guinea was recently suspended from Economic Community of West African States, or known as ECOWAS, due to the coup. The 15-nation bloc has called for an immediate return to constitutional order in the country, with ECOWAS delegation having arrived in the country's capital, Conakry, on Friday to hold talks with the junta. The visiting ECOWAS delegation said Friday that ousted President Alpha Conde was in good health. ECOWAS Commission President Jean-Claude Kazi Bourou said he had seen Conde and that the ousted president is well. United Nations Security General Antonio Guterres has also condemned the ruling military junta and called for the Conde's release. Conde, who came into office in 2010, was the country's first democratically elected leader since independence from France in 1958. He was a third. He won a third term last year in the 2020 presidential election, with the opposition deeming it fraudulent and a violent demonstration taking place after the results. Although the country is rich in minerals such as bauxite, much of the population lives in poverty. Credit DW.com. Okay, this is from U.S. State Department again concerning abuses in northern part of Ethiopia. So the United States is still calling on peaceful dialogue and reconciliation to solve the Ethiopian crisis, but it's falling into deep ears. So I'll read this statement again. Ongoing conflict and human rights abuses in northern Ethiopia. Press statement. Ned Price, Department of Spokesperson. The United States remains gravely concerned by ongoing conflict in multiple regions of Ethiopia. Reports of continued human rights abuses and atrocities by the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, the Eritrean Defense Forces, Amara Regional and Irregular Forces, the TPLF, and other armed groups, including the reported attack on civilians in one village in Amara region this week, are deeply disturbing. We condemn all such abuses against civilians in the strongest possible terms and call on all parties to the conflict to respect human rights and comply with their obligation under international humanitarian law. We agree with the United Nations Secretary General and African Union leaders. There is no military solution to the conflict in northern Ethiopia, and a durable political solution must be found. We urge the Ethiopian government and the TPLF to enter at once into negotiation without precondition toward a sustainable ceasefire. The mounting reports of human rights abuses underscore the urgency of independent and credible international investigation. It is essential that the Ethiopian government and all other parties to the conflict provide and facilitate the access necessary for such investigation. We look forward to an update from the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights as the 48th session of the Human Rights Council on the human rights situation in Tigray, and to the release of the joint investigation report of the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission and the Office of the UN High Commission for Human Rights at the earliest possible opportunity. We also urge full cooperation with the Commission of Inquiry of the AU Commission on Human Rights and People's Rights, establishing transparent, independent mechanisms to hold those responsible for human rights abuses to account is critical to political reconciliation and peace in Ethiopia. So this is a press release from U.S. Department of State. Okay, the last part of today's reading. Afghanistan. UN condemned Taliban's brutal crackdown on protesters. The United Nations has condemned the Taliban for what it is increasingly violent response to dissent, week after the group rapid takeover of Afghanistan. Taliban fighters killed 4 people during recent protests, the United Nations said. Demonstrations have taken place across Afghanistan since the fall of Kabul on 15 August, demanding respect for women's rights and greater freedom. Taliban fighters have used batons, whips, and live ammunition against protesters, the United Nations said in its report. We call on the Taliban to immediately cease the use of force towards and the arbitrary detention of those exercising their rights to peaceful assembly and the journalists covering the protest, a spokeswoman for the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights said in a press statement. Taliban fighters swept across Afghanistan in August, capturing provincial centers and eventually the capital Kabul itself in less than 2 weeks. The United States then led an airlift from the capital's international airport, evacuating more than 120,000 people before pulling out of its own forces on 31st August. The collapse of the Taliban following 2 decades of US military operations in Afghanistan after American and Allied forces ousted the Taliban from power in year 2001 following the 9/11 attacks. The US will mark the 20th anniversary of those attacks today. United Nations spokeswoman Ravia Shamdasani criticized the Taliban's crackdown on demonstrations in a press briefing on Friday. Demonstrations have grown since 15 August, she said, but on Wednesday, the Taliban banned unauthorized gathering, and on Thursday, they ordered telecommunication companies to shut off mobile internet in Kabul. It is critical the group listen to Afghan women and men on the street during this time of great uncertainty, she said. The press statement also noted the deaths of at least 4 people, including a boy, and the violent dispersal of demonstrations in recent weeks. So it is also critical violence against journalists. Reporters told the BBC this week they had been beaten, detained, and flagged by the Taliban when they tried to cover the protest. Credit BBC. So, all governments, when people try to express themselves through protest, they do communication shutdown. This is newly established government start using the system used by other governments in Ethiopia and in other parts of the world. Immediately they will shut down the internet and telecommunication service. So Taliban start using the same tactic. They just got power. They became government. When the people want to express their freedom, they just go to telecommunication companies and order the shutdown. This is a tactic used by most government, I can say. So they learn it very quickly. So that's all I have for reading. Let's see a little bit update on video from this, the voice of reason. I like this guy, his analysis. Let's listen to him and finish up today's presentation. Here you go.
To another edition edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I'm your host, the voice of reason. So in our ongoing coverage of the Ethiopian Civil War taking place, obviously, in the former state of Ethiopia, the fighting continues. I would like to go back very briefly in history and talk about the beginning of the conflict, the middle stages of the conflict, and where we're at now, and some of the tones that have been coming out of really of both sides, but specifically the Ethiopian state media, the Amhara regional media, and what has been saying, because it's been very difficult to truthfully follow the course of the conflict based on that information. And that's not being biased, that is simply telling the truth, and I'll try to explain. So 10 months ago, this conflict started. It was started with a very robust and somewhat surprise attack by forces of the Eritrean military and the Ethiopian military into the Tigray region to subjugate a political opponent. And that is what occurred. Within weeks of that conflict starting, after large parts of the Tigray region had been occupied by this surprise attack, the conflict continued. Now, it was called a law enforcement operation at the beginning. Now we understand it's not a law enforcement operation. There's ethnic cleansing, there is genocide, there is conventional war taking place. Now, rewind 10 months ago, the fighting, within the scope of the fighting, we would perpetually hear, even in the comment section of this particular channel, which would get their information, obviously, from the Ethiopian state and the Amhara regional state government. And the common theme 10 months ago was this conflict will be over in a few weeks. The TPLF junta will be in prison, incarcerated, or killed. A month later, as the conflict continues, same rhetoric. Within 2 weeks, the conflict will be over. TPLF, TDF junta will be in prison or in jail. 6 months, a half a year into the conflict, the same rhetoric. The conflict will be over in 2 weeks. The TPLF junta, the TDF junta will be in prison or in jail. Present day, the forces of the Ethiopian army, the forces of the Eritrean army have been evicted from most parts of the Tigray region. The conflict is now taking place deep inside of the Amhara region. Okay, the fighting is no longer really taking place inside of Tigray. The fighting is now taking place inside of the Amhara region, which generally means one side may be losing. The side that appeared to be winning at the start of the conflict now appears to be losing. But at the same time, that side continues to say the conflict will be over in 2 weeks. The TDF and TPLF junta will be in prison or incarcerated or killed. So they've been saying that for about 10 months now. So from an outside observer's viewpoint, looking in, trying to understand what is going on, and when you hear that from the Ethiopian state, from the Amhara regional government, continuing to tell what is tantamount to lies, because the conflict will not be over in 2 weeks, and the TPLF, TDF junta will not be in prison or killed. Past performances are indicative of future results, and where we sit right now, that is simply not the fact. So again, 10 months ago, hearing the same rhetoric in terms of what was happening, and to this day, as the fighting is really manifesting itself deep into the Amhara region, and I'll kind of get into the specifics of the update for today, kind of what's going on and where we kind of sit. Things are not looking good for the state of Ethiopia. Things really haven't looked good for the state of Ethiopia and the Amhara regional paramilitaries since really probably month 3 of the conflict. That's really where it started to turn. And then 6 months into it, we could really, at least in terms of the way the composition of the Ethiopian armed forces inside of the Tigray region was acting, the way it was quite literally leaderless at times, and that transposed itself onto the battlefield to the current results we're seeing now. But where we sit right now, I think our brands are on fire.
Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram goes back many, many years. We still have a lot of muscle.
Obviously the fighting is very intense right now, and we are seeing a major push. And I had talked earlier in an earlier video about how we would see perpetual swings in this conflict, and at one point yesterday, and again, we have to listen to the Amhara regional news sources. We have to listen to the Ethiopian state news sources, because they are providing what would be, under normal circumstances, people would think it would be somewhat truthful, but unfortunately it's not, and you really have to take it with a grain of salt. But right now we're and again, the battlefield is fluid. The front lines are very fluid. We can't say there are these stable lines, but right now it would appear that with this Tigrayan Defense Force buildup that has happened in the southwestern front, and that would be the front facing Debark and the areas south of IDRK, the TDF has what looks like experienced a breakthrough. And it would appear that we are seeing very large elements of the TDF now counterattack and are pressing north. They have engaged some fairly significant units of the Amhara regional paramilitaries and the Ethiopian state military. And again, these two are starting to blur the lines in terms of who they are, right? So the Ethiopian military may in fact be these Amhara regional paramilitaries. At times they wear the same uniforms, they're being supplied from the same sourcing, so they look the same. But do they call themselves the same? Are they the same ethnic makeup? Quite possibly not. Completely different. But it would appear that there was some very significant engagements south of DRK, and we're receiving reports that the TDF infiltration unit. So the TDF right now is fighting both a conventional conflict, and it's also fighting almost a rear area partisan conflict, where it is taking forces and they are infiltrating those forces deep behind the lines, or the proverbial lines, so to speak, of the Ethiopian army. And again, these lines are not fluid; they're not well maintained. Even on the TDF side, we've seen cases where Amhara regional paramilitaries have infiltrated behind the TDF. So kind of remove the thought process of standard front lines in terms of conflicts you would see elsewhere in the world, say World War II or whatever it is. This is just a different conflict right now. But right now we are seeing TDF infiltration units press as far right now as, and we're receiving reports that they could be as far as about 20 miles or maybe 50 kilometers or so from the city of Gondar. And that's where we're at right now. And we're hearing reports that the Prime Minister of Ethiopia has visited front lines, allegedly possibly in the area near Gondar, and that is to try and shore up the operational integrity of the forces that are trying to engage the TDF. But things right now on the southwestern front, from Debark down to Gondar, are not looking good for the TDF, or I'm sorry, for the Ethiopian army. I'm sure that will be used in the comments section because I misspoke. Fire away, not a problem. But what we're seeing is mass surrenders. We're seeing a breakdown in cohesion. We're seeing the force structure of the Ethiopian army, the Amhara militaries, paramilitaries, and again, we got to blur we got to blur the vision a little bit, because to distinguish between the two is becoming more and more difficult, which I said would occur. And again, we eventually, I believe, you will see an Amhara military apparatus, maybe calling itself an Ethiopian military apparatus, but in fact, it will simply be an Amhara regional army calling itself something that it probably isn't. But right now, we are seeing fairly significant defeats. We're seeing equipment being captured. We're seeing soldiers being taken into POW camps in terms of these Amhara paramilitaries in the Ethiopian army. But again, very heavy fighting along this front, and we're also seeing fighting as well on other areas as well. We've hit that alleged 24-hour deadline for the surrender of Dessie. Could we see an all-out attack on the town of Dessie? Possibly. We'll see what happens. We do know that activity is very, again, fluid in this area. The Tigrayan Defense Forces firmly control everything from basically Mersa north, and that would include Weldia, Kobo, and then obviously west all the way to Gashina. We're also now receiving reports that the Tigrayan Defense Forces have possibly taken this town of Wagtena, and that would be crucial, because that was the staging ground from Dessie to Wagtena for these Amhara paramilitaries to make a move earlier on Gashina, which were then driven out. But securing that could possibly be a major turning point in the conflict for the TDF, and really kind of condense these lines into one fluid line from Gashina, Wagtena down to Wachali. But we'll continue to monitor that as well. But again, and we continue to hear from the Ethiopian state, the Amhara regional paramilitary regional media. What I'm seeing now is when things start to go badly, they really start honking the horn of victory, meaning you start to really hear erroneous reports that they are winning, and meaning the Ethiopian state and Amhara regional militias are making progress, and they're driving back the Tigrayan Defense Force. And when you hear that loud, what it really means is they're not having a very good time. They're having difficulties, and that has been kind of the course of the conflict. The louder they honk that horn of victory, you know something possibly is wrong, because they're trying to stabilize the morale within their own armed forces and the people that they are governing as well. And unfortunately, those people are probably in many cases not getting the accurate truth, and unfortunately, that is unfortunate. But that's where the conflict stands as we speak today. Again, some fairly major developments and fairly major ongoing battles as the TDF continues to push down towards Gondar. Again, fluid, back and forth, not stable lines, but what we can confirm by video documentation is the Ethiopian state, whether that be the Amhara region that is controlling everything or the remnants of the Ethiopian state, they have taken losses. Their soldiers are being loaded into prisoner of war buses and moved north, and that is the status quo. We're not seeing that on the other side. We're not seeing large volumes of TDF soldiers who have been captured and loaded onto bus and transported wherever they could be transporting them. But that is the situation as we speak. We'll continue to monitor the situation and report to everyone, but I think we're entering a stage of the conflict that could be pivotal in terms of the losses and the victories that are taking place right now on the part of the TDF. The TDF is reporting some very significant casualty figures on the part of the Ethiopian army and the Amhara regional militaries. Again, it's very difficult to ascertain given the situation on the ground, but obviously those reports are very high in terms of the casualties the Ethiopian army is taking. But again, we're also seeing validity in terms of video evidence of this activity actually occurring itself. So again, we'll continue to monitor the situation and report and make more videos. Again, I hope everyone has a great day and a happy New Year for all those folks living in the Horn of Africa region.
Okay, so that is the update from the voice of reason. I like the analysis and with a geographical Google map of the analysis where TDF is mainly operating, how the Ethiopian and the Amara militia and other militias came from other areas, fighting or, and what are the reports on both sides, the military victory, the claims, even though it's very hard to verify independently. So that is the situation. That's the update for today I have for you. And I hope this conflict will end in favor of the public, not in favor of the PP officials holding power in that country. I hope will be a victory for the people of Ethiopia who are looking for a better administration, for a better peace of mind and freedom and better engagement with the global community, for a better economy, better scholarship, instead of just gathering everybody to the war front and creating all this bloodshed or bloodbaths now in the north part of Ethiopia and the south part of Ethiopia in Oromia and also Benishangul. So these are all horrible news, and the inflation, the economic inflation, and the value of Ethiopian birr, very trash. It looks like leaf now. It doesn't buy you anything. So people are suffering, but Ethiopians are very silent so far. They don't demand change from the government. I know they're scared of the security operations, the undercover operations ordered by Abiy Ahmed. I know that's a tough one. But still, in other African countries, when the situation is going badly, even not to the level of Ethiopia, people rise up and demand change. But Ethiopians so far, no, they are listening to the government propaganda and pro-government propaganda and are, moving toward the war front, leaving everything, contributing everything, giving everything they don't have, suffering themselves. And that's not the solution. That's not the solution. The solution is when the government lie, you have to catch them lie and demand the apologies, not to lie again. When the economy is moving to downturn, you have to resist and demand change for the government. So I hope 2014 will be a better year for people of Ethiopia, a better year to end the bloodshed in that country, a better year to end hate among Ethiopians, conflict. I hope it will be the end of command posts and war and the global isolation of that country. I hope it will be a bright future for Ethiopians. A bright future when Ethiopians can engage with the global community through scholarship, through trade, through different training, tourist visa, So, but there is no hope under the current leadership. So Ethiopians must come together, ask themselves, is the current leadership we have in the country, are they leading us to prosperity or more bloodshed and catastrophe? They have to ask themselves and get the answer for themselves instead of just following government propaganda. So that will be the end for the Ethiopia, but commemorating September 11 is a sad day, a solemn day, and I just pray for all the victims and the families, friends again, to be strong and continue their prayers for betterment of the United States and the world. So that's all I have for today. Thank you again. Please share, comment on my videos, and I will be back with other updates. So long, everyone.